talk to you about are the principles of qualitative analysis. I told you several times that there are many different methods, and I will cover quite a significant number here, but there are literally hundreds. So there are certain things that all qualitative analysis has in common. The first thing is that there is always something that we refer to as coding. Coding means that we assign a label that is called a code to a chunk of something. Usually it is a chunk of text, but it could be part of a picture, it could be a segment of video recording, it could be, I don't know, some area on a map. So anything that qualifies as qualitative data, chopped up to smaller units and assign a label. This is the coding process. Very often there is some sort of summarizing happening. Why? Because these are very long things. So normally a research interview will last at least an hour. And if you have something so long, it is very easily possible that you need to make it shorter in order to be able to work with it. However, this is not always the case. And of course, there is some sort of categorization happening as well, which is about so assigning the categories is all about the coding process. And of course, we are also structuring the data and restructuring it very often based on those relationships that we recognize. So we will look at those narratives that are unfolding in the various ways. So these are kind of important in any sort of qualitative analysis, although the different approaches will go differently about them. Now, the codes, so those labels that you assign to these various chunks of qualitative data, it is important to organize them some way. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of labels that are not coming from anywhere, not going anywhere, so not easy to work with them. Now, where the structure is coming from and when it happens, this is where you can start distinguishing between the different approaches to qualitative analysis. So one way is that you get the codes from the literature. So you are reading about a topic. For example, I have a student, a PhD student, who is doing research about support in online communities of diabetic people. So diabetes type 2 support. And her coding structure initially came out from the diabetes literature, which already looked at what sort of support is needed. It had nothing to do with online communities. It was purely coming from basically healthcare type literature, which was, of course, quite difficult for her to read because she's a computer scientist. So it is not really her field to understand diabetes. But it was there, and this was giving her the initial structure of the code. So this is called deductive coding. Why? Because it is given in advance, and then as you are going through the data, you can quickly classify things according to this pre-existing coding structure. Now, the logic here is that you have a higher level concept, then you divide that higher level concept into a few lower level concepts. So, for example, about, I don't know, a warning system about diabetes, one of the categories are the wearable technologies, and then the wearable technologies have like three main types, whether it is built in your watch, whether it is built in your contact lens, and I don't know, whatever was the third one, it is a separate device. And anyway, so these are achieved by dividing the bigger ones into smaller ones. And of course, sometimes you decide that it was not worth dividing it because you don't learn anything from that, but this is happening later during the analysis, so you can always move between closing and opening these relationships. If you are approaching it from the different side, so that you don't start from the literature, you can also obtain the codes from the process of analysis, so from the actual qualitative material that you are working with. So there is, so you can get, these are called emergent codes as they emerge in the process of analysis based on some sort of similarity that you see. What is important to understand is that if you do it this way, if I do the same type of content qualitative analysis as you do with the same material, I will probably come up with different codes than you did. Why? Because we think differently. It is unique to that person who is doing the analysis, how you perceive the similarities, how you prefer to group things, and so on. When we use the labels, so the codes, directly from the text of the interview, for example, we call these in vivo codes, which means that we don't rename them, we don't invent the names, we just use the concepts that are already in the qualitative material. And of course, in the qualitative analysis, there is always interaction between data analysis, so data and the person, between the codes and the data, between the data collection and the data analysis. So there is a high level of interaction about everything. And my approach is that I work with exceptionally rich data. So think about the interviews with the Nobel laureates or with some of the best chefs in the world. So I literally just spend time with them. For example, I take my research assistant and I tell my research assistant the story about my interview. I reread or re-listen to the interview and basically let myself get fully immersed. So this is kind of a deep level of what I was referring to previously as immersing yourself. This is called indwelling. It is a concept introduced by Michael Polanyi. And this is when you are very much interested in something and you just dwell on that concept and it becomes basically part of you and you become part of it.